On the 17th of November, a woman who called herself Helena van der Woodsen supervised the final placement of a 2-meter-tall abstract sculpture in the corner of her penthouse suite at the Jumeirah Emirates Towers in Dubai. The piece, a chaotic yet elegant tangle of polished chrome and black carbon fiber titled Urban Entropy, was positioned to afford it the best possible view of the city's sprawling, futuristic skyline. To the hotel staff who had carefully transported the crated artwork, she was the embodiment of her cover, a wealthy Dutch art consultant with an eccentric taste and a limitless expense account in the city to furnish the lobby of a new financial institution. They saw her meticulous attention to the sculpture's angle, the precise way she instructed them to turn it 3 centimeters to the left, as the benign fussiness of an artist. They did not see the impossibly fine-gauge wiring integrated into the sculpture's base, nor could they know that its chaotic form was a deliberate, calculated design, engineered not for aesthetic appeal but to house a multispectrum signals intelligence array of unparalleled sensitivity. The woman was not an art consultant, her name was not Helena, and the sculpture was not art, it was a weapon of espionage, and she had just turned one of Dubai's most luxurious hotel suites into a clandestine listening post for the Israeli Mossad. The problem that necessitated such an audacious and high-risk operation was a man known to the intelligence community only by his cryptonym, the Architect. His true name was General Reza Qasemi, a senior commander in Iran's Quds Force and a logistical mastermind who had, for over a decade, orchestrated the covert arming of proxy forces across the Middle East. Qasemi was not a frontline commander but a phantom who moved weapons with the same subtlety and foresight that a grandmaster moves chess pieces. His latest project was his most ambitious and dangerous, the imminent transfer of a consignment of C-802 anti-ship missiles, upgraded with advanced guidance systems, to a militant group operating at the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz. The successful delivery of these weapons would grant a non-state actor the power to threaten, and potentially close, the world's most critical oil choke point. For Israel, and indeed for global economic stability, this was an existential threat that had to be neutralized. All conventional methods of tracking Qasemi had failed spectacularly. He was a ghost who exhibited a level of operational security that bordered on paranoia. He eschewed all forms of modern electronic communication, never carrying a mobile phone, never using a computer, and never allowing his travel plans to be digitized. His movements were communicated exclusively through a closed loop of vetted, face-to-face human couriers. Satellite imagery was useless against a man who traveled on commercial flights under a variety of high-quality false identities, and human intelligence assets had been unable to penetrate his hermetically sealed inner circle. The intelligence that placed him in Dubai was itself a masterpiece of deduction, pieced together from fractional intercepts, the analysis of shipping manifests from a shell corporation, and the faint signal of a third-party financier's travel booking. Mossad knew the Architect was coming to the Jumeirah Emirates Towers to finalize the deal. They knew the what, the where, and the why. But they did not know the when or the who, the identity of the buyer, and without that information, simply eliminating Qasemi would only delay the shipment, not stop it. They needed the entire network, and the only way to get it was to be inside the room with him. General Reza Qasemi's psychological and operational profile, compiled over years by Mossad's research division, painted a portrait of a man forged in the crucible of the Iran-Iraq War. He had witnessed firsthand how superior technology could be defeated by asymmetric tactics and disciplined operational security. This experience instilled in him a profound and unshakable distrust of the digital world, which he viewed as a landscape of vulnerabilities waiting to be exploited by his enemies. His rise through the ranks of the IRGC was not meteoric but a slow, methodical ascent built on a reputation for flawless execution and an almost supernatural ability to anticipate and counter his opponent's moves. He personally vetted every member of his security detail, not just for loyalty but for their psychological resilience and their ability to operate without digital assistance. His operational signature was consistency masquerading as unpredictability. He always chose 5-star international hotels in major transit hubs like Dubai, Istanbul, or Kuala Lumpur for his meetings, correctly assessing that their high volume of transient, wealthy guests provided a perfect camouflage. He favored corner suites on upper floors, which minimized the number of adjacent rooms and provided a clear vantage point to observe approaches to the hotel. Before he ever set foot in a room, his advanced team would conduct a meticulous counter-surveillance sweep, not just for electronic bugs but for physical alterations to the room, a new painting, a recently disturbed section of carpet, a television set whose model was inconsistent with the hotel's inventory. He was known to run his hands along walls, feeling for temperature changes that might indicate hidden electronics. He was, in essence, the perfect anti-modern intelligence target, a man who could only be defeated by methods as analog and intimate as his own, or by technology so advanced it was functionally invisible. Operation Glass House was conceived as the answer to this challenge, a plan to get closer to Cassimy than his own security, using technology he could not conceive of to exploit the one environment where he believed he was safest. The proposal for Operation Glass House landed on the desk of the head of Caesarea, the Mossad Special Operations Division, where it was met with a mixture of awe and profound skepticism. The plan was audacious to the point of being reckless. It called for the establishment of a fully functional, real-time intelligence gathering headquarters inside a luxury hotel in a friendly but exceptionally security-conscious nation. The risks were astronomical. Discovery would not only mean the capture of Israeli operatives but would also create a diplomatic firestorm with the United Arab Emirates, a nation with which Israel was carefully cultivating nascent, clandestine ties. The technical obstacles were equally daunting. The operation required smuggling several hundred kilograms of highly sensitive electronic equipment into Dubai, moving it through a five-star hotel lobby, and installing it in a suite without alerting hotel security, the ever-watchful Dubai State Security, or the target's own expert counter-surveillance team. Every stage of the operation, from insertion to extraction, was fraught with single points of failure, any one of which could lead to catastrophic consequences. What ultimately tipped the scales in favor of approval was the profile of the operative proposed to lead the mission on the ground, an analyst and logistics specialist from the Intelligence Directorate, codenamed Dahlia. She was not a field operative in the traditional sense, she was not trained in hand-to-hand combat or high-speed evasive driving. Her expertise was in the far more subtle arts of data analysis, network mapping, and, most importantly, the construction and maintenance of deep, impenetrable cover identities. Her selection was a strategic masterstroke. A team of male operatives posing as businessmen would attract scrutiny. A lone, wealthy European woman ostensibly consumed by the frivolous world of high-end art would be socially invisible, her comings and goings, her unusual cargo, and her extended stay all perfectly explained by her meticulously crafted legend. She was the key that would unlock the door to Cassimy's inner sanctum. The technological and tactical preparations for Operation Glass House represented a quantum leap in clandestine surveillance capabilities, pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible. The technical specialists at Mossad's workshops, in close collaboration with signals experts from the famed Unit 8200, designed and built a suite of bespoke tools tailored specifically for the unique architectural and security environment of the Jumeirah Emirates Towers. The centerpiece was the Urban Entropy sculpture, a marvel of miniaturization and concealment. Its carbon fiber shell was transparent to a wide spectrum of radio frequencies, allowing the phased array antennas hidden within to passively collect faint electronic emanations, the stray signals from the buyer's phone, his bodyguard's communication devices, or any other active electronics in the target's vicinity, without emitting any detectable signal of its own. To penetrate the physical barrier of the hotel room, a different set of tools was required. One of the art crates contained a custom-designed microdrill. Its motor was acoustically baffled to be virtually silent, and its diamond-tipped bit, measuring only half a millimeter in diameter, was designed to bore through concrete and steel rebar with minimal vibration. The drill was paired with a fiber-optic borescope, a strand of medical-grade optical fiber thinner than a human hair, which could be threaded through the minuscule hole to provide a high-definition visual feed from inside the target room. Perhaps the most advanced piece of equipment was a compact, low-frequency acoustic imaging device. It functioned like a medical ultrasound, emitting subsonic pulses that could travel through the floor of Cassimy's suite. The returning echoes were then processed by a powerful onboard computer to generate a real-time, three-dimensional map of the room above, showing the placement of furniture and, crucially, the number and location of its occupants. Smuggling this arsenal into Dubai required a logistical operation of equal sophistication. A shell company, Van der Woodsen Fine Art Logistics, was established in Amsterdam 6 months prior. It was given a credible backstory, a professionally designed website, and a history of legitimate, albeit small, art shipments to galleries in Europe and Asia. The equipment was packaged in museum-quality shipping crates, complete with fraudulent customs declarations, certificates of authenticity for the non-existent art, and insurance policies from a reputable firm. The crates were shipped as commercial air freight, a calculated risk that relied on the sheer volume of cargo passing through Dubai International Airport to obscure their true nature. The plan depended on the bureaucratic inertia of customs officials being unable to distinguish a crate containing a signals intelligence array from one holding a bronze statue. The selection and preparation of dahlia was the human core of the operation, a process as meticulous and resource-intensive as the development of the technology she would wield. Dahlia was not a typical candidate for such a mission. She was the daughter of Jacob Kaplan, a legendary Mossad Katza who had been killed in a botched operation in Beirut 2 decades earlier. She had grown up in the shadow of the organization, steeped in its culture of secrecy and sacrifice, and had joined not out of a desire for adventure but from a cold, analytical conviction that she could contribute in a way her father could not. She possessed a unique combination of eidetic memory, an intuitive grasp of complex systems, and a preternatural ability to remain calm under extreme pressure. Her entire career had been spent behind a desk, analyzing intelligence, not gathering it. Her handler, Gideon, who had been her father's protégé, argued that this was precisely what made her perfect for the role. She was a blank slate, free from the ingrained habits and tactical signatures of a career field operative, making her behavior harder to predict or identify. Her training was tailored and intense. She spent 3 months in a simulated hotel suite, practicing the silent assembly and operation of every piece of equipment until she could do it by touch in complete darkness. She underwent extensive psychological conditioning, designed to compartmentalize fear and stress, and to reinforce the deep layers of her cover identity. She learned to think, speak, and carry herself as Helena van der Woodsen, internalizing a lifetime of fabricated memories, preferences, and opinions. The most critical element of her preparation, however, was a secret known only to her, to Gideon, and to the director of Mossad. Intelligence analysis, conducted by Dahlia herself years after the fact, had conclusively proven that the architect of the failed Beirut operation, the man who had anticipated her father's team and led them into a fatal ambush, was a then junior IRGC officer named Reza Qasimi. Operation Glass House was more than a mission to protect national security. For Dahlia, it was a deeply personal reckoning. This motivation, a cold, controlled desire for a specific form of justice, was judged to be her greatest strength, a psychological anchor that would keep her focused and unflinching in the face of unimaginable risk. It was a dangerous fusion of the personal and the professional, a calculated gamble that her grief would fuel her precision rather than cloud her judgment. The construction of Dahlia's cover identity, the persona of Helena van der Woodsen, was an exercise in obsessive, granular detail. The objective was not merely to create a disguise but to build a life so plausible and deeply rooted in verifiable reality that it could withstand the most intense scrutiny. The process began with the selection of a real, deceased Dutch infant from the 1980s, whose birth certificate provided the foundational document for Helena's existence. From this, a team of specialists in Mossad's documents division forged a complete set of identity papers, a passport with authentic wear and a history of travel stamps from relevant art world destinations like Venice, Basel, and Hong Kong, a driver's license, and multiple credit cards linked to established European banks. A digital life was then meticulously back-engineered. A professional website for her art consultancy firm was created, featuring a portfolio of fictional, successful projects and glowing testimonials from non-existent clients. Social media profiles were populated with years' worth of content, showing Helena at gallery openings, art fairs, and on research trips, each photo carefully staged and geotagged. These profiles were interwoven with the accounts of other Mossad operatives playing the roles of her friends, colleagues, and family, creating a web of social connections that would appear authentic to any background check. Financial legends were established through the Amsterdam-based Shell company. It had a history of regular, legitimate-looking transactions, paying for shipping, insurance, and professional services, creating a paper trail of mundane commercial activity. Dahlia's personal bank accounts showed a pattern of spending consistent with a wealthy, single woman with a passion for high fashion, fine dining, and, of course, art. The physical props were just as important. Her wardrobe was curated from high-end designers, her luggage was from a heritage brand, and the books left on her coffee table were obscure art theory texts. She carried a notebook filled with sketches and notes on contemporary sculpture. Every item was chosen to reinforce the narrative of her life, to create a symphony of details so complete that the persona became an armor of authenticity. She was not playing a role. For the duration of the mission, she was Helena van der Woodsen. Dahlia's arrival at Dubai International Airport was the first test of this meticulously constructed reality. She moved through the seamless, air-conditioned efficiency of the terminal with the practiced ease of a seasoned luxury traveler. Her movements were calm and unhurried, her expression one of mild boredom. She presented her Dutch passport to the immigration officer, who scanned it, stamped it, and welcomed her to the United Arab Emirates without a second glance. The first hurdle had been cleared. The Shell company's logistics agent, another Mossad operative from the Tevel department which handles liaison with allied services, had already cleared the crated equipment through customs, a process smoothed by the company's pre-established credentials and the sheer banality of the paperwork. The crates were waiting for her, loaded onto a truck for delivery to the hotel. Checking into the Jumeirah Emirates Towers was another performance in quiet authenticity. She spoke to the front desk staff in lightly accented English, discussing her need for a suite with ample space for her acquisitions, and a good northern light for her work. Her demeanor was pleasant but slightly distant, the exact mix of politeness and entitlement that staff at such establishments encounter dozens of times a day. Over the next week, she established a routine. She would spend her mornings in the suite, taking calls, carefully scripted conversations with other operatives, then spend her afternoons visiting local art galleries and design studios, always taking a taxi and paying with a credit card to create a verifiable local footprint. She became a familiar presence to the hotel staff, the quiet European lady in the penthouse suite. The arrival of the art crates was the moment of maximum vulnerability. Dahlia supervised their delivery with the same calm, professional focus she had displayed at the start, ensuring they were handled with care. To any observer, she was simply a professional protecting her client's valuable assets. Inside, her heart hammered against her ribs, but her outward composure was a flawless mask. The crates were moved into her suite, and the door closed, sealing her inside with the tools that would determine the success or failure of the mission and, quite possibly, her life. The waiting period was a unique form of psychological torture. For 10 days, Dahlia lived inside her legend, a prisoner in a gilded cage. Every action was a performance, every word a line from a script. She maintained her routine, leaving the suite for calculated periods, always conscious of the cameras in the hallways, the staff she passed, the digital traces she left. Inside the suite, the crates remained sealed, silent monuments to the impending risk. She could not touch them, could not begin her work, until she received the signal. The intelligence that the architect was en route came not through a clandestine channel but through an open-source data point. A small, private jet owned by a front company linked to the IRGC filed a flight plan from Tehran to Dubai. It was the trigger. Within hours, a second piece of intelligence, this one from a human asset within the hotel's management, confirmed the booking, a VIP guest, requesting the Imperial Suite on the 48th floor for 3 nights. The reservation was made under a name that matched one of Kasimi's known aliases. The Imperial Suite was 1 floor directly above Dahlia's penthouse. The operational plan had accounted for a suite on the same floor or an adjacent one, but this vertical alignment was a stroke of unexpected luck. It made visual surveillance through a window impossible, but it was ideal for the acoustic imaging and the microdrill. The moment the intelligence was confirmed, Gideon gave the activation order. Dahlia had a 12-hour window before Kasimi's scheduled arrival. She contacted her 2 art installers, a pair of Mossad technical specialists who had entered Dubai separately as German engineers attending a conference. They arrived at her suite dressed in overalls, carrying toolboxes that had been cleared by hotel security. The illusion was perfect. Inside the suite, the atmosphere shifted instantly from quiet tension to silent, focused urgency. The team worked with practiced, economical movements, uncrating the equipment. Dahlia directed the operation, her voice low and steady, as the specialists began the most delicate phase, the physical penetration of the suite above. The climax of the operation was not a crescendo of action but a symphony of silence and invisible technology. As one technician assembled the acoustic imaging device, the other prepared the microdrill. Dahlia, using architectural blueprints of the hotel they had acquired months earlier, identified the optimal point for drilling in the ceiling of her living area, a spot that would emerge beneath a large, heavy sofa in the suite above, minimizing the chance of visual discovery. The drill, muffled and turning at a low RPM, bit into the reinforced concrete. The process was agonizingly slow, a fine gray powder a testament to its progress. Once the penetration was complete, the fiber optic probe, no thicker than a fishing line, was carefully fed through the opening. On a high-resolution monitor, a distorted, fisheye view of the Imperial Suite's carpet appeared. The first technician, meanwhile, had activated the acoustic imager. On his screen, a ghostly, three-dimensional wireframe model of the room above materialized. It showed the layout of the furniture and, soon, it would show the people within it as thermal acoustic signatures. The sculpture, Urban Entropy, was activated last, its passive sensors beginning their silent vigil, listening for any electronic signal that entered its wide radius. By the time Cassimy's advanced security team arrived to sweep his suite, Dahlia's team had packed their tools, reverted to their cover as art installers, and left the hotel. Dahlia remained, alone with her screens, the silent observer in the glass house she had built. Cassimy's team was good, their sweep was thorough, but they were looking for threats from their own technological era. They checked for radio frequency transmitters, for hidden microphones, for infrared emitters. They found nothing, because Dahlia's equipment was almost entirely passive, and the single point of physical intrusion was a microscopic hole hidden under a 200-kilogram piece of furniture. When General Cassimy finally entered his suite, confident in its sterility, Dahlia was already watching him, a ghostly figure on her acoustic imaging screen, his voice a crystal-clear audio feed in her earpiece. The meeting took place the following evening. Dahlia watched on her monitors as three individuals entered Cassimy's suite. The acoustic imager rendered them as distinct shapes, while the audio feed captured every word. The fiber optic probe, positioned perfectly, provided a clear, if narrow, view of a briefcase being opened on a coffee table. Cassimy's guest was not a state actor, but a notorious international arms dealer of South African origin, a man whose name was on multiple sanctions lists but who had proven just as elusive as Cassimy himself. This was the missing link. For 2 hours, Dahlia listened and recorded as the two men finalized the deal. They discussed shipping routes, passing through ports in Oman and Yemen. They confirmed container numbers and the name of the vessel, a Panamanian-flagged cargo ship. They arranged the final payment, not through a bank, but through a network of hawala brokers operating out of Dubai's Gold Souk. It was an intelligence haul beyond the most optimistic projections of the mission planners. They had not just confirmed the threat, they had captured the entire operational blueprint of the smuggling network, from the supplier to the transporter to the financier. Dahlia, her face illuminated by the glow of the screens, felt a cold, satisfying sense of completion. She had unraveled her father's killer not with a bullet, but with information, dismantling his life's work with the clinical precision she had inherited and honed. Her mission was to listen, and she had heard everything. The moment the arms dealer and his associate left the suite, the intelligence-gathering phase of Operation Glass House was over. The data had been encrypted and transmitted in small, compressed bursts to a Mossad listening post in the Negev desert. The mission was a success. The extraction protocol was designed for speed and fragmentation, ensuring that the team dissolved back into the city's anonymous flow before any potential alarm could be raised. The technology in the suite was considered expendable, any attempt to retrieve it would have introduced an unacceptable level of risk. Its components were designed to degrade, their data storage units physically melting into a corrosive, unrecognizable slurry via a remotely activated chemical agent 12 hours after the final transmission. Dahlia's exit was the first and most critical. She followed her established routine, a model of normalcy. She made a dinner reservation at a restaurant across the city. She dressed, took the elevator to the lobby, and asked the concierge to call a taxi, a mundane sequence of events performed under the invisible scrutiny of hundreds of security cameras. This time, however, the taxi took her not to the restaurant but to a pre-arranged swap point in a quiet residential neighborhood. There, she entered a different vehicle, and her identity as Helena van der Woodsen ceased to exist. In the back of the car, she removed the wig and the subtle prosthetics that had altered her facial structure, trading her designer clothes for the anonymous attire of a tourist. She was given a new passport, this one Canadian, with her own, unaltered photograph. Her two technical specialists followed similar but separate extraction paths, one leaving by bus to Oman, the other taking a flight to Frankfurt on a German passport. The core principle was to avoid any link between the three of them. They had arrived in Dubai as strangers, and they would leave as strangers. Dahlia's flight departed from Abu Dhabi, not Dubai, a simple but effective measure to evade the comprehensive passenger monitoring systems at the primary airport. As her plane climbed over the Persian Gulf, the city of Dubai shrinking to a constellation of lights below, she felt not elation, but a profound emptiness, the hollow echo of a long-held purpose now fulfilled. The consequences of Operation Glass House unfolded with strategic precision in the weeks that followed. Acting on the hyperspecific intelligence provided by Mossad, the ship's name, its IMO number, the specific serial numbers of the containers, the United States Navy's Fifth Fleet interdicted the Panamanian cargo ship in the Arabian Sea. The official story, released to the global press, was that the seizure was the result of a routine inspection. Inside the marked containers, they found the C-802 missiles, exactly as Dahlia's intelligence had described. The network Cassimi had spent years building was decapitated. The South African arms dealer was arrested in a coordinated raid in Belgium 3 months later, his financial empire collapsing under the weight of the evidence seized. General Cassimi himself returned to Iran, unaware of the source of the catastrophic failure. He was sidelined by a deeply suspicious IRGC leadership, his reputation shattered, his career effectively over. He would live out his days in obscurity, a ghost haunted by a failure he could never explain. For Israel, the operation was a resounding, silent victory. A grave strategic threat had been eliminated without a single shot fired, and a treasure trove of intelligence on Iranian smuggling methods had been acquired. There were no diplomatic repercussions because, officially, the operation had never happened. The Jumeirah Emirates Towers continued to operate, its staff unaware that one of its most luxurious suites had briefly served as a nerve center for foreign espionage. Dahlia returned to the anonymous world of intelligence analysis. She was no longer the same person who had entered Dubai. The intense focus and psychological strain of living a false life, compounded by the personal weight of her objective, had permanently altered her. She had proven herself not as her father's daughter, but as a new kind of operative, one whose greatest weapon was patience and the relentless application of intellect. She had found her revenge, not in the heat of violence, but in the cold, quiet darkness of a hotel room, listening to the secrets of her enemy. What is the true cost of living a lie, even in the service of a greater good? Can an act of revenge ever truly be an act of justice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story compelling, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel.